following President Ali Bongo Dimp's declaration of victory for third term in Gabon's elections, a coup was orchestrated by senior military figures leading to the nullification of the election outcome, spearheaded by General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, the commander-in-chief of the influential Gabonese Republican Guard and a relative of President Bongo. The coup's motives were rooted in discontent with Bongo's health concerns and alleged breaches of the constitution. General Nguema, assuming a leadership role, had previously served within the Republican Guard during the tenure of former President Omar Bongo. Convening at 1400 GMT, the military leadership aimed to determine Bongo's successor, despite securing a significant 64.27% of the vote. Bongo remained confined to his residence while the country's soldiers commemorate Nguema's actions. I am Gbenga Aborowa, and you're welcome to the square. Now, joining our gathering today is Ambassador Armien Roy Okidebe, the National Secretary, retired members of Nigerian Armed Forces, who joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Dennis Nthumbi, governance and security expert, joining from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. And in Accra, Ghana, we have Adam Bona, a security expert. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the square.
Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to start with Adam Bona in Accra. How significant is the timing of the coup in Gabon, occurring just minutes after the announcement of President Ali Bongo's third-term victory, albeit an election that many observers have said didn't live up to democratic principles?
Well, good afternoon, and I believe it's good evening in Nigeria. And let me say hello to my co-panelists. Well, very timely. The intervention was timely. If you look back, the last election before this, people died, demonstrators who disagreed. Some people vanished from the surface of Gabon, and opposition perceived opposition leaders got incarcerated. Some were beaten to pulp and all that. And prior to the declaration, they've cut, what do you call that, internet had been cut, and social media had also been cut. And so very, very timely. I think the soldiers' intervention prevented a bloodshed, because then obviously Ali Bongo and his henchmen and his cohorts were definitely going to go after those who challenged them. And so, and if you listen to what was going on the dawn before the dawn when the declaration were done, the understanding was that they simply just gave the percentage the opposition leader had to Ali Bongo, and gave what Ali Bongo had to the opposition leader. And if the soldiers did not intervene, chances are that ordinary citizens were going to suffer the consequences. Some persons would have died, but I'm sure the coup stopped, bloodshed in Gabon.
Thank you very much, Adam Bona. I just want to confirm if we have Ambassador Roy online. Okay, Ambassador Roy, one welcome to you. Could you provide insight into the role of General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema as both the commander-in-chief of the Gabonese Republican Guard and the ringleader of this coup d'etat we just witnessed in Gabon? And also, is there a pattern of heads of the presidential guards planning coups against their principles? We saw this just a few weeks ago play out in Niger. What do you make of this pattern? And does it question the loyalty of those who are responsible for the president's protection? Hello, Ambassador Roy, are you there? Okay. Hello, Ambassador Roy. Are you with us? Okay, apologies for that. We lost Ambassador Roy. So I'll just direct this question to Dennis. Dennis, what factors or grievances do you think have led senior military officers to annul the elections and attempt a coup against President Bongo's government? What do we know so far?
Well, thank you very much. I'm not sure whether you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
I think there's, sort of a communication hitch or a delay. But I think with the current happenings, there are more questions than answers. And part of the questions that we need to ask ourselves is whether Gabon's coup or the recent coups threaten either Africa's longest ruling president, or is it a question of the coups targeting longest serving presidents? When you look at the issue of Gabon, the family has ruled for the last 56 years, but the question is are they targeting the longest serving president, or is it essentially, are they targeting nations that seem to have eroded institutional democracy? At the end of the day. The other critical question that we need to ask ourselves is the seemingly support by citizens on these military coups, and the rise of the fact that citizens are pouring out in the streets and they seem to celebrate these coups, is that the decadence and the erosion of democracy. Citizens don't seem to see as though political or electoral processes mean anything to them, or that they have to wait for another 5 or 10 years to be able to institute a change democratically. Then they tend to see these military coups as a salvation mode to them to run away from a majority of these regimes that seem to be autocratic by nature. So the romance that is suddenly seems to escalate, with the military coups and the citizens, and whether we are likely to see more of that happening in Africa, then it's a thing that we can just wait and see the same unfolding. But I don't think Africa in itself, as it currently stands, has any institutional capacity to fight back the coups, unless governments of the day change their disposition and they then conform to constitutionalism and making sure that what citizens wish or long to see is effected on the ground at the end of the day. Essentially, that would be my observation.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Now I'd like to bring Ambassador Roy into the conversation. Ambassador Roy, could you provide insight into the role of General Brice Oligui Nguema as both the Commander-in-Chief of the Gabonese Republican Guard and the leader of this coup? And are we witnessing a pattern here? Because the coup that was just carried out in the Niger Republic was carried out by the head of the presidential guard there. So what does this say about this and their loyalty?
Okay, thank you very much. One thing I also appreciate other guests that are online. One thing we need to understand with coup d'etat is that it goes beyond the initiator, because the initiator must get other loyalists that will buy into it, because they will definitely be putting their life on the line. So immediately the coup d'etat succeeds, they have the right to set up an interim government. They have the right to start to review and improve on all the reasons why they started the coup. And they also have the prerogative to say these are those that will become active in the front lines of discussions, decision making, and all that. But one thing is sure is that a military team going out in battle are ready to die for one another. So loyalty is first to your comrades, loyalty is first to your platoon, the unit where you serve, before you start talking about loyalty to whoever they are posted to. So I believe that the matters of coup d'etat in Africa has gone beyond the ECOWAS right now, and the AU needs to start looking at it and take decisive action for discussions to begin to roll out.
Very much, Ambassador Roy. Now, back to you in Accra, Adam Bona. Just yesterday, the ringleader of the coup, General Nguema, granted an interview to French daily Le Monde. He mentioned the violation of the Gabonese constitution and issues with the election method. He also talked about the health of President Ali Bongo. Could you elaborate on these concerns and their implications for Gabon's political stability? What do you make of what you've heard from him so far? Does it justify the coup d'etat?
Well, yes, I think it is justified for the coup d'etat. I don't think civilians should die when they have to elect people that they are employing. You know, it's one thing political leadership in Africa are not aware of. They are supposed to be our servants, the citizens, the taxpayers' citizens, the taxpayers' employees. They are supposed to be servants. But unfortunately, when you back here in Africa, in some parts of Africa, you have a situation where some people see it to be a birthright to lead, and so once they find themselves elected, to lead, per the constitution, they turn it around and they expect the people to serve them. And if you are aware how long the Bongo family have led, Congo, what's the name? Gabon. You ask yourself, if this was a monarch, I'm sure that by now some other persons from other places would have joined. If you come to, for instance, in Ghana, where chieftaincy is through a royal gate or a skin or a stool, you must belong to a certain royal gate. So you don't have, for instance, me, Bona, the Bona family, the succession plan is that once one person is gone, another person from the same family, but it rotates. I don't know how it is in probably in Nigeria and in other places. But what I'm saying is that you could have two, 3, 4 gates who, when the chief is dead or is deposed, another person comes. But with this, what is happening in Gabon, you have a situation where the old man dies and his son becomes the successor to him, and the successor now has his children who are likely to succeed him. I don't think that is anywhere closer to democracy. And also, it is in the interest of the Gabonese for the soldiers to do what they did to prevent bloodshed. I believe that the soldiers in every country are there to protect the territorial integrity of the country. And so, by extension, I believe that it is fair for them to have done that.
But Adam, you're taking a very unpopular view, because in the aftermath of the coup yesterday, we did see statements from ECOWAS, from the African Union, from the United Nations, all condemning this coup d'etat and asking for constitutional order to return to Gabon. How do you respond to that? Why do this regional and continental bodies wait for a coup to happen before they start expressing condemnation of the coup? They seem to be very silent when these democratic values are eroded, and in the midst and middle of bad governance that happens for sometimes decades.
Well, it speaks of the volumes of hypocrisy that has to do with the setup of the United Nations, the AU itself, and ECOWAS. They've become puppets and they've become sycophants. So long as it suits them, they will support it. Were we not, don't they remember what happened in Rwanda? Where was the United Nations when the genocide happened in Rwanda? They later came up with damning report against France and other people who were implicated in the genocide in Rwanda. And so it is very usual with them to speak about democracy. And their definition of democracy is something that probably, academics and researchers would have to relook at. Because if we all know democracy to be the rule of the people and not the rule of few, then I suspect they might be reading from a certain book that the rest of us are not reading from. Because they've been there. The Bongo family have been there for close to 6 decades, almost 60 years. Where was the United Nations? Where was the AU? Where was the European Union and the rest? They've all been there. You will have unemployment rate in Gabon closing up to 25%. This country is oil rich. Okay, so mine is that I am happy that these things are happening. The citizens of Africa would have to take the bull by the horns. If our leaders are not respecting the constitutions, then we should help whoever would help us take back what belongs to us. Take it back. I'm not by this asking coups in everywhere in Africa. Some countries are not doing bad. But those countries that you go to Togo, you have the Yadema family. When I was a child, the father used to, the late President Rawlins's colleague. Rawlins and Seko have handed over, and we have a successive, changeover in Ghana. Togo actually depends on Ghana. Without Ghana, Togo wouldn't be a country. So how can one family, for all these years, be the only people who are suitable to get people to, from the same family to rule? And yet it is called democracy by the United Nations, the ECOWAS, and the AU. They only find their voice when these things happen. Meanwhile, they saw some of the things that took place. Where were they? So mine is that I think there has to be, a level playing field for everybody, so that in cases like this, they would intervene and say, you have had enough. Can you leave? They were there when they cut internet to the people of Gabon. They were there when electricity, other things were cut. They didn't call. We didn't say them saying, return the country to civilian rule. They didn't say that. And so you see, the United Nations, the AU and ECOWAS and these blocks would have to start respecting citizens in this part of the world. We have nationals of some of these African countries and some crossing the ocean, and they die every now and then. When this coup was happening in Gabon, we actually had some Nigerians actually attempting to cross the ocean into Italy and other places, and there was a boat capsizing in the waters. Did we hear the United Nations making a comment? Did we hear AU making a comment? Did we hear ECOWAS making a comment? Did we hear the European Union making a comment? And so mine is that it's as if we are applying what pertained in the animal, in the old age animal kingdom book, where some animals are more,
yes,
as far
are more equal than the others. A fine place to go on a break, gentlemen. Quite an interesting discussion happening on the square today. We're looking at the aftermath of the coup in Gabon. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, still a lot to unpack on the square today. Do stay with us. You're welcome back to Village Square Africa News Central Television. We're currently discussing the aftermath of the coup d'etat in Gabon, where General Nguema has been named as the interim leader in that country. And I still have with me on the square Ambassador Amien Roy Okidebe. We also have Dennis Nthubi joining from Nairobi, Kenya, and also Adam Bona in Accra, Ghana. Now, Ambassador, you're welcome back to the square. How has President Ali Bongo's health, particularly his stroke in 2018, played into the political dynamics and discourse in Gabon? How much of a contributory factor was it in the leaders of this coup taking power? And what sort of psychology do you think he had? I mean, you're someone that clearly suffered from a stroke and you changed your country's constitution to allow you to serve a third term. What do you make of this, Ambassador Roy?
We need to start seeing beyond what we observe. We need to start looking at entangling reasons, forces, and connotations to some of these things. Now, the same president that we speak about, he has the opportunity to go to France. We saw him visiting in France in that condition that he is. So he must have seen the pain, the trauma, the concerns, and the other protocol encumbrances that his health was able to manage around before he does anything. You know, so this is not a matter of personality. It should be a matter of the country and the people. Leadership is for the country and the people. So immediately you see that there are things happening to you health-wise or whatever, guys, and it's entangling your performance capacity, capability. You must begin to look at buying out, whether you have done your tenure or not, because it's a servitude position. But the challenge we have right now is the understanding that African leaders have that they can remain in power till any time they are done. These things are guided by two different forces. One, the external forces. The second one is the internal forces. I assure you, the internal force is stronger than the external force. What is the internal force? The internal force is made up of citizens of the same country that connect with that leader to truncate the opportunities of the other citizens, especially the masses, the middle and the lower class, to be able to get the big benefits and dividends of democracy. So they sit with the ruling president and continue to share the legacies of that country. And the external force are the Western world, the other countries, Asia, the big countries that have just come together now. They are designed to continue to milk African countries' wealth and resources for their own benefit. You know, so sitting as a president in Africa gives you opportunity to use these two as an advantage to yourself and as a disadvantage to your country. And at the end of the day, you will be looking at an exit plan that will go beyond your lifespan. Because we have other models existing. We have a president in Africa that is 90 years old. 90 years old currently. And he's still on seat. He just changed all the military heads in his country. So that they will not also maybe take a clue from what they see in other African countries. You know, so African leaders need to sit down. This is an opportunity for AU to become the government that they should be, but on all the policies that connect our resources with our fellow colonial masters, sit down and look at all the policies that form the constitution in every African country and begin to put the people first, put Africa first in every decision.
Thank you, Ambassador Roy. Very important lessons to be learned from your submission, and also thoughts on very poignant points that some of these leaders need to consider. Now, Dennis Thumbi, Ambassador Roy did talk about a 90-year-old changing, still in power, is in Cameroon, President Paul Biya. There was an announcement, they reshuffled the high hierarchy of the Cameroonian military, I guess, to allow him to consolidate power, and so that those people in Cameroon would not be getting ideas from their neighbor in Gabon. It also happened in Rwanda, where President Paul Kagame has been in office for about 20 years now. Now, Dennis, could you help us understand the underlying factors. Apologies for that. My producers are telling me that Dennis is not online at the moment. So I'll just direct that question to Adam Bona. Adam, could you help us understand the underlying factors driving the recent upsurge in military coups across various African nations? And how do these factors differ from those observed in the past? Because there was a Cold War era where, you know, military intervention and sometimes CIA-sponsored coups were the thing. What is the difference between these coups we're seeing recently and those observed in the past?
Regards to what pertained in the past and today is that in the past, the people largely were not informed. The people largely didn't probably understand the dynamics, what was going on to a very large extent. But today, the advent of social media, the advent of the internet, is just a click of a button, and you know, you will be able to know what's going on in Lagos, Abuja, New York, London, you know, Accra, anywhere in the world. You'll be able to know real time. And you will sit here and if you have systems connected in your village, you can see your village 24/7. And so as far as I'm concerned, now the people are becoming informed, discerning more than it used to be in the past. And so you can see the influence of the West. Largely, the people are becoming very suspicious. The people are beginning to ask legitimate questions. If you look at the coups that are taking place, the Gabon in Central Africa and majority of them now in West Africa, most of them are within the, you know, Francophone bloc. And why is it so? It is so because these countries are not, you know, probably still under French rule or French governance. French, I mean, we know that France is likely to collapse because all the resources that these countries put together end up in the hands of the French. Would have to decide if they want it and at what price they would pay for them. They draw their own budgets and it has to go to Paris for someone to decide. And so as far as I'm concerned, like my other colleague said, you have the Cameroonian leader. How long has he stayed in power for? So I will be celebrating. I'm not saying any bloody thing should happen in Cameroon, but I will be celebrating if tomorrow you hear that the people have agitated and removed him. If they remove him, you know, I'll tell you what, Ghana, we have had a fair share of coups. But today, I can tell you confidently that coup is a bit far-fetched, it's too far from the people because, you see, we decide who should lead us. We decide at what time we change you per the Constitution. And if you disagree, like is happening in Nigeria, the Peter Obis and the rest, you go to court. Can you imagine in Cameroon, if an opposition leader who decides that you've cheated me, you can go to court, I am sure that you would end up getting killed, your supporters will be killed. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine, you know, in Niger or in any of these countries where we have seen coups, if opposition leaders have a voice, like probably you have in this part of the world, maybe Ghana, Nigeria, and a few other countries. Most of them are people who are put there because the so-called big nations, once they use them, they are okay with that. And so for me, we had Ali Bongo yesterday talk about people should make noise
and
so
help
that he can be released. You know, my point is that has he forgotten that they don't have good health facilities in Gabon? Does he know that they don't have very good schools in Gabon? Has he forgotten that they don't have good roads in Gabon? Has he forgotten that a lot of the Gabonese are living below the poverty line? And he and his family and his cohorts have stolen so much. And so when I heard him yesterday say the world should make noise, then my question to him was, and his cohorts, when you were enjoying from the largesse, did you ask us to come and probably make noise? No, because you were enjoying it quietly. And so mine is that these coups are going to go on. There is nothing me and you, the AU, African, the ECOWAS, the UN, the European Union. You see, it is difficult to stop the people from doing what they want to do. It's very difficult. So as far as I'm concerned, if the UN has anything to do, they should quickly move to Cameroon and tell him, we've had enough of you. You have to go. We need to rewrite your constitution. They should go to Alassane Ouattara's country. He changed the constitution to impose himself for a third term. They should go to all these countries. That way, you know what, we are going to have these African countries returning to proper civilian rule. And so as far as I'm concerned, these coups are going to continue in some of these countries, and we might have a few before the year ends.
Thank you, Adam. Now, Ambassador Roy, as we begin to wrap up conversation on today's Village Square Africa, it's been 24 hours since the coup was announced, and General Nguema has been named the interim leader. How would you say that this coup at this point in time is a success? And the second part of my question is, drawing from historical context, what role do you believe post-independence power struggles and unresolved legacies are playing in the current wave of coup attempts in Africa?
Okay, let me take the first question. Okay, and I would like to relate it to what happened in Niger Republic. You know, when a coup d'etat happens, I believe that all dissenting voice calms down immediately. The sitting president or government signs a resignation. You know, so when you resign or you are killed, you know, then, let's start with resign. Those that resign shows that they have accepted the new government. So any other opposition usually comes from the outside, but in a coup d'etat where the president is killed and in the gunfire exchange, there are possibilities that there might be a reprisal from another loyal unit or whatever, But currently, what we are seeing is one bullet has not been shot in the coup d'etats that are happening. And you see civilians on the street jubilating and making the noise for Bongo. And you can see a situation also where the coup plotters are rolling out a project, like sitting in another government and beginning to write out certain things that they are rolling into place. For this Gabon, for an example, for the second question, the general that was put on the seat right now also has a certain level of influence in the former government, and is perceived to be part of the corruption that is going on in Gabon there. And another thing again is that he has been accused to have houses and properties outside of the country, in Western countries, in France, in US. Now, having said that, I will go back to my former postulation that the only strongly currently lie with the AU. The AU must take initiative. ECOWAS lost that initiative when they started to throw the stick instead of the carrot. The AU must take this initiative right now, review all the reasons why people need to plan coups, review why democracy used to have hiccups, including the current one we are going through in Nigeria. Review all of those things, make it the United Nations. They are looking for how to harmonize money, finance. They brought the IMF, they brought human rights, they brought the United Nations human rights abuses. They take a global and picture and hold people to rise up. So why can't the AU begin to say every democracy must be in this manner or that manner? must be accountable to this document or that document, and begin to review all of that document so that you bring the people's opinion into those documents and everybody will own it. You know, so the AU will be seen fair if they start to intervene, if anybody tries to flaunt or violate some documents. But currently, we are not happy about coup d'etat, nobody is happy about it. But then we are seeing a situation where this has become consent on the part of the African Union.
Thank you very much for your time, Ambassador Omian Roy Ohidevie, National Secretary, retired members of Nigerian Armed Forces who joined us from Lagos. I would also like to say thank you to Dennis Nthumbi, Governance and Security Expert, joining from Nairobi in Kenya, and also Adam Bona, a Security Expert who joined us from Accra. Thank you so much for joining us in the square today. We do appreciate your insights and contribution to the program. And that's a wrap on The Square today. I am Gbenga Aborowa. See you next time. Bye-bye.